It is 10:23 here on the East Coast. Welcome to TwitchLine, a special Thursday edition of TwitchLine. I am your host, Hodo, joined as always with my good friend, best friend, Mr. Acorn. How are you doing, buddy?
Very well. I'm interested to see how this evening goes, as it's our first time just totally freestyling and possibly stumbling and fumbling and enjoying ourselves on the way.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, this is what we call a Freeform Thursday. We don't really have anything planned. We don't have any topics that we want to talk about. Everything will be just sort of ad libbed. But just to get stuff out of the way, if you want to contact us with a question, comment on something, or send us some articles, you can do that via email at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can also tweet us at Twitchline on Twitter. For those interested in seeing some of our past shows, go click below on our YouTube link below. That'll take you to our YouTube channel, where we are also streaming live. You can watch some of our older shows on there. Mr. Acorn is responsible for keeping up all the little links in there, so therefore you can go in there and watch past shows, go directly to topics that you want to listen or read or see, and you'll have a good amount of videos in there now that you can actually sort of watch, as well as taking us along for the ride on SoundCloud. You can take us and listen to us on your phone, on your laptops, tablets, you name it. We're on there. You can listen to our shows. We upload all of those clips onto SoundCloud about 2 to 3 days after we are live here on YouTube and Twitch. So that is going to be that. Welcome, everyone. We don't know how this show is going to go, but okay. So we're just going to be just shooting the breeze now, Tim. I am very excited because I am working from home tomorrow. Yay!
That's amazing. That almost indicates that you will be free for lunch. Almost.
Almost. I do have things I need to do in the morning. I will be getting my car serviced. Luckily, I do have a service plan over at my car dealership. So the wait, though, will always be 2 hours, no matter how long they say the wait is going to be. So my car has a weird problem. Like if I'm on an incline, it believes that I have no coolant in my car. So it is weird. Um,
That's
so
like my car, except my car, when you're driving, it beeps and hits the brakes automatically as though you're about to get into an accident randomly.
so yeah,
Yay.
well, both our cars are made by Nissan, who should be a sponsor of the show. Nissan, if you're watching, we own your cars.
Yeah, right after I take a crap on them. Well, oops.
Oops. But yes, so I am very excited. I will see if I can get out of the dealership in time, and then maybe we can go and eat. That will be great. So, absolutely. So, I've never been a blogger. You know me, Tim. I have always been able to talk in any situation and possibly just ramble on, but to talk about nothing without any real topics is actually sort of weird. When I'm on Twitch, usually I'm usually game casting or talking about topics that you've dug up for the show. So there's usually some sort of direction. So this is really weird.
Yeah, it's okay though. Um, we'll just we'll just go with it and see what happens. Have you ever tried writing down your feelings? Kept like a diary or kept like a blog of what's going on inside your head?
No, no, and the thing about it is like you remember we had a class in high school where we were supposed to, I think it was keep daily articles. Do you remember that class? It was that human resources
Yep.
education class. That was the first time I had never done anything like that, and I've only done it for that class, but it was very weird. I had never been able to sort of write down because I think we were supposed to like write down our feelings for the day and how we would react and stuff like that, and we give it to the teacher and she would read it essentially, but not necessarily give us a grade on it. We were just required to write stuff, and I don't know. I've just never been good at that. I don't. I guess I've just never been like emo enough to just sort of lay out what I want on paper. So it was very weird to me when I did it. There were people who didn't have any issues with it. I don't know. Did you have any issues doing that particular daily assignment thing? Because we turned it in what, like every
No,
Friday or something like that.
yeah, no, I was an emo kid, so this is totally fine for me. I, I was always writing stuff like that down. I kept, I kind of kept a diary, not a diary. I don't know what it was. I just would write,
Hmm.
and sometimes it was just venting frustration. Sometimes it was about my relationships. Sometimes it was just when you couldn't, couldn't sleep and your mind was racing, and it just went
Hmm.
all different directions. But I found it to be interesting and useful in that it sometimes allowed me to get my thoughts together. And sometimes I didn't even know what I was actually thinking and feeling until I put it on the paper and then kind of read it through and said, wow, I can see this went somewhere I didn't think it was going to go when I started writing. So it did keep me in touch with maybe a little bit more of my subconscious.
Hmm.
So I thought it was pretty useful. I mean, like for the one for class, I don't necessarily think I gave it my all in that I don't think I was going to pour my heart out for this random teacher in high school. And also in high school, what are you really going to be upset about, or what are you really going to, I didn't really have real problems back then.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like I was a boring kid, well, a little Asian kid that grew up in the suburbs that really didn't have any issues. Really, I mean, I wasn't really bullied ever. I got decent grades. Parents would take care of me. I mean, uh, nothing really to be sad about. I mean, so it was like weird trying to write stuff every day. It's like, well, what would I do? It's like I went to school. Um, I did my culinary classes. It was fun, and I went home and I played my Sega Genesis for 3 hours. Did my homework. I went to sleep. That was literally my life for a long time. So it was like, okay. Well, senior year, I think it was beyond the Genesis at that point. I was playing PC games by then on my crappy like 486 SX25. And but yeah, I mean, I didn't have any real issues. I think there were kids in that class though that really had home lives that were not necessarily the greatest in the world and probably got more out of it than we did.
For sure. I mean, I remember a specific thing that happened in that class where a lot of sheltered, middle upper middle class kids got a taste of what you know people from different backgrounds go through.
Mhm.
And I think it was kind of wake up call. But that was an interesting class. We were connected just because we were the same age and put in the same room. But at the same time, through the sharing, I think we ended up, just I don't know, we touched on something more human that I
Mhm.
think people don't get to unless they're forced to open up like that. And that's, I mean, for me, that sort of takes me in a direction here, which is like, so I was talking to my mom
Mhm.
the other day, and she and I made a comment about men, or maybe I was talking about myself and how I was okay to talk about my emotions and my fears and things that I was, upset about. Basically, just that I was okay to talk about that. And her response was, "Yeah, well, most men don't do that, or can't do that, or aren't supposed to do that." And that, because of my group of friends and because of the way we all interact, like we don't have that issue. That doesn't It doesn't happen for us or to us because uh, we're open with each other, and I think that makes it more easy and accessible to be open with other people. But out there in the world, there are a lot of men that go by these kind of traditional rules that they can't emote, or that there are only certain emotions that they're allowed to share. They can show anger, they can show jealousy and rage and you know, I guess whatever you consider a typical male emotion, but you're still not allowed to cry. You're still not allowed to like be too sensitive and things like that.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if these dynamics are changing across the board, or if this is more of a, this is like a little pocket that we exist in. Do you have any sense of or like I don't know, what do you think on it?
Ah, I just think, I think that sort of stereotype of men not necessarily needing to be emotional is sort of crap. Honestly, I've gone through a lot of things in my life that's required me to be emotional. A little weird though, because not many people have suffered tragedy in the ways that I have. I mean, I don't wish what happened in 2004, between 2004 and 2006, on anybody, honestly. But it made me realize, it's like, you know what, you are who you are. So it's like, you don't necessarily need to worry about what other people think about how you feel and what you express and what you do. So I think all of that is like just complete, it's like nonsense with regards to that. And I've lived with that for, over, it's close to 15 years now. So it's like, it really does sort of put everything into perspective when you think like that. So, but I don't know. I just think people believe, when it comes to uh, how you're supposed to express your emotions if you're a man versus if you're a woman or something like that, is that there are certain roles what you should be doing in certain situations, especially in like, um, in my culture, especially, you're the guy. You're the one who's supposed to deal with all the problems head on, and you let the women in the back deal with what they deal with, which is very misogynist. At the same time, it's like, not necessarily the healthiest in the world mentality wise. So, I think if it's a tragedy or something like that, shared experience of sadness and being able to express what you truly feel to everybody available in the room who's also feeling it that way, instead of being that like stoic person, will help people more. It's just my thoughts on the whole thing. Um,
But
it's just weird.
but do you think? I mean, that is one of the exceptions. I think if you had to ask the traditional minded folk out there, when is it okay for a man to break down, and when is it okay for him to be vulnerable and to show these emotions, which are traditionally associated with women, would be during a time of great loss, or basically like a pretty significant life altering event.
Oh no, you're right,
But
but
on a
like
day to day,
on a day-to-day basis, you're allowed to be sad about things. You know what?
are you?
Yes, you are. And it's
No, no,
the
I know you say you
yeah.
are, but like, are you to the like if you like not to me or not to someone who's known you for 20 years and not to the person who loves you, but like, are you to the average American plucked out of a hat? Are you?
You know what? I think you are, and the only reason I say this is that there are, and this is the stupidest thing ever. If you read enough Reddit, people post all this schlocky crap all the time, and you're at work, and the things that you see sometimes are really cute and sad and stuff like that, and you're trying to kill time at work, and you see, what is it, like, one of the ones that always get people are the videos of the soldiers coming home. Like, you see the
Yep.
families like reacting and stuff like that. I've always been cool with all of that stuff, but it's when the ones that make me tear up, and my friend caught me on it at work one day, was I was watching one of them, and it wasn't like a wife or anything that was really happy. It was a dog. Like, the dog recognized the soldier coming home, and it was like, "Oh, look at the puppy, he's so
someone
happy."
someone at work caught you.
Yeah, someone was like, I saw a tear. I was like, what are you crying about?
Oh,
It's
that's
like,
awesome.
I was like, oh, look, the dog. The dog recognized the soldier coming home. And he's like,
He's like, no, 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 I wasn't crying. I was masturbating. I'm looking at porn. No, no, I wasn't crying.
Oh, we were both laughing at the whole thing, but it was one of those things in which it's like that's adorable. It's like, isn't it though? And then there are all sorts of like all of that schlocky stuff on Reddit, because if you read all the comments and stuff, I mean, I how many people are women, but you always or how many versus are men, but you're always like, you read the comments there and you say it's like, it's like, yeah, thank you for posting this video. Now I'm like a blubbering mess at work, and I'm a 35-year-old man crying at my computer watching a dog react to a guy coming home. So it happens to everybody. You don't necessarily have to hide it. It's fine.
I,
And the thing about it
I'm
is
not
like,
crying.
yeah, I'm not
I'm not
crying.
crying. You're
You're
crying.
crying. You're crying. It's like, yeah. And it's like, and then the thing about it is like, as soon as you explain what it is that you're watching to somebody else, they'll probably laugh, but then they'll watch it too, and they'll do the same thing because the emotion is the same. It's really really cute to see. So it's like, and it's not just that. Like there are all sorts of like, photos like that that'll actually do that. There was one on Reddit yesterday. Was I think it was a Russian soldier who was taking like he was in a parade and he had all of these medals, and he was walking by himself and crying. And the subtitle was is that he was the last remaining member of his squad, and he was in World War II. So it's like, oh man, it's like photos like that that are just super sad, but you don't know where you're gonna run into them. But like, that's just one of those things in which, everyday life just sort of runs into you, and you see sad stuff, and I think you're just allowed. I think in today's society, you're allowed to react to it in any way. Yes, you could be called a bitch or a pussy by some bro out there, but whatever, man. Just get it out, and you just be who you are. It's endearing to a point, honestly. So
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
but you did get called out for it at work as though it
yeah.
was not
Because
an okay
because
thing
he
for you
he
to
didn't
do.
know. Yeah, he didn't know what I was looking at, and he empathized with me as soon as he found out. So as soon as he
Hmm.
found out, it was completely fine. The thing about it is I think without context, a lot of men will get called out for that shit. But with proper context, no matter what it is, uh, if you are just not an empathetic person, then you're never going to react. But I think we can agree that most people will be able to empathize with somebody being able to watch something like that, and will be just like, oh, okay, I get it, and then just sort of walk away. It's like, it's acceptable.
Yeah,
I think what it is just like when you just see a random guy crying for no reason on the street, you just think is like, oh, that's weird. But then when you hear that guy's story, like, that's then you sort of start to understand. It's like, oh, I get where he's coming from. This is very interesting. Or is like, guy walking home in the rain and he doesn't have anywhere to go because his wife died yesterday. So it's like,
right. But
stuff like that.
these are
Mm.
these are I mean that the
Traumatic, yes,
soldier with
yeah.
the yeah, these are all kind of extreme. I'm talking day to day, uh, you know, uh, a too sensitive guy is like it's like a trope in a movie in comedies. Like women being with a guy who's too sensitive is like a nightmare.
Well,
So if
I
you're
mean,
overly emotive, then maybe that's an issue.
well, if you're overly emotive about stuff, but I mean, you have to understand what he's going to be overly emotive about. What would be something that you deter? If you think this, it's like, what is it that you determine that is uh, overly? If somebody were to react overly emotionally, what instance? Because give me like a point of reference. Because apparently, like everything that I've said is just sort of extreme. But like,
Well,
what
not
are you saying is?
so like seeing something online and that is intended to be emotional and
Hmm.
having emotions related to it is pretty normal, right? But like a person who is just every day coming in and is emotional about things or is like if a guy was having maybe he had a fight with his girlfriend or wife the night before and he was just like really emotional about it the next day. I don't know that the other guy in the office would be like, "Hey, talk to me about your feelings,"
I,
I
I
just
don't
uh,
th- I
I
don't
just
think
don't know
it's a
about that.
I don't think it's a proper place to talk about it. But if the person was very broken up about the whole thing, take him out for a beer and
But
talk to him about that.
do you think so again, I guess I'm trying to compare this to if it were a woman in the office and she would, another woman in the office would be more likely to attend her emotions and her emotional reaction than a man to a man in general. Like
I,
it's
I
almost like there's like a a ceiling or like there's something you have to go above. It has to be a certain level of uncomfortable, sad, or horrible for you to break into acceptable sharing of emotions as a
well,
man.
I think in your particular example, I'd still want to talk to the guy about the whole thing. Like if he gets it off his chest, it's fine. I just don't think at the work environment is the proper place. I would say, hey, look, don't plan anything after work. We'll go have a beer. We can talk about the whole thing. I would be cool with that. Like I just think that yeah, I think women are a little bit more likely to just like, somebody comes in, they're at their desk and they're just seething or they're just really emotional and they don't know. I think women are very in tune in picking that up and realizing what's going on and are very more willing to sort of talk about it right away. I think men have a tendency more to put it off and maybe put it in an environment that's a little bit more private, so that like you talk about stuff all the time. But it happens. I mean, I've had a coworker before have and a guy who had issues and stuff like that, and you can definitely tell if it's affecting if something's wrong and stuff like that. And he just basically just started talking to me in the kitchen at work. I didn't have anywhere to go, but I listened to him and I just let him vent and just gave him some suggestions with regards to his personal issue, and he was very thankful about it. Um, sometimes people aren't going to be able to keep it in, no matter what the issue is. And it's like it could be something very simple as somebody having issues with their neighbor, and they're being very like emotional about that, or a pet having an issue or something like that. It's almost like I had one uh, female coworker who is um, very emotional about her pets. She didn't have kids, so I guess maybe I don't know if this is a little too extreme, but she treated her dogs and her cats like her kids, pretty much. And one of them was struggling and stuff like that. And it was what is it? It was our IT guy who has two dogs that was helping her commiserate and just like understanding what she was going through with her animals and stuff. So yeah, I think it's situational. I think
Of course it is.
yeah. So it's but is it a negative thing to be hyper emotional? I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's on a case by case basis of what they're going to be emotional about. Honestly, so it's
Right.
like I
Well,
think there are proper times where you say to a guy, "Suck it up."
to all people, it doesn't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to be a guy.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, so when you tell me that you were receptive to this kind of thing, I'm not surprised because that's who you are.
yeah.
Uh, When I was asking sort of the premise of this whole conversation was the average Joe Schmo, an average interaction out there in the world, outside of our empathetic kind of personalities, those ones out there. I wonder if it is as uh, modern and if people are emotionally available to each other, kind of like if you just had to pick out a bunch of random people, how they score for this.
Hmm.
Um, I do think that hyper emotional, uh, I don't know, like hyper emotion for a specific situation is one thing, but if you're just a hyper emotional person, that can be really draining, and that can be the kind of thing that makes other people kind of reject you or push you away in certain ways because you can drag people down if your emotions are if they require something, right? Like you can be emotional and share some of it or whatever, but at the point where you're making other people have to feel like they're always bringing you up because you're sad, or that they have to respond to every emotion that you have, or meet you in there at that level. It can really interfere with your connections to other people too.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's also a reason why people avoid certain topics. Like, it has been, I've noticed recently that when you bring up the topic of politics to people, people have a tendency to either get really hyper emotional or just shut down completely, because of the way that people react to that particular topic. I mean, I mean, it's been as we get older, like like I don't think any of our friends have been really too political. I mean, people express some political emotions about things and here and there, but not really that much. But I find that now, if you are expressing your, politics in one way or the other, uh, people have a tendency to get really hyper emotional, and it's something that you're theoretically just talking about, like policies or whatever like that. And I find that, like, as soon as you hit like a topic like that, I think people will immediately shy away to avoid instances of hyper emotionality like you were talking about, because they feel like that's like a almost like a triggering topic that you shouldn't be talking about if you just want to keep everything light. I don't know. I mean, like, I think it might be like a bad example because I guess politics has always been sort of triggering to people. But I used it was funny. I knew a girl, who I could make cry if I were to talk about Japan. It was weird because she associated that with her ex-boyfriend, and as soon as I brought up that topic, she immediately would start crying, and I was like, "Oh my god, what the hell did I do?" And it's like, "Oh no, I messed up somehow." And then the waterworks would come, and I was like, "Oh," because we were both anime fans, and how do you not talk about anime without talking about Japan? You don't. So it's like, oh, okay, but
So then, did you have to avoid? I
yeah.
mean, how do you have that connection with that person and not keep going back to that
Well, you
emotional place?
she was a nice girl, but you just didn't talk about that particular topic. It was just almost like you had to sort of avoid it. Is like, even though we had met each other at an anime club, and she was dating her ex boyfriend at the time in the anime club, but she was, she had other interests, like she liked to travel and was an artist and does all sorts of other stuff. But I would run into her at anime conventions, and it's like, why are you here? All of this stuff just makes you sad. It's like, oh, I
Like,
have all that
she
for.
just never got over that guy?
It was
Like,
very,
years and years?
ew. Let's see. I stopped going to anime conventions in 2007, and I ran into her at conventions all the way up to like 2004, 2005, or something like that, and it was still relatively triggering at that point. And they had dated through my college years, and then up to about 1999. So like it was about 5 years afterwards that she was still somewhat emotional about the whole thing. It's like,
And I'm guessing he broke up with her?
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was tiresome.
that's
I can understand that in that particular case. So it's like, okay,
so, this, might be a nice little segue into another topic.
that
Um, the how long is the acceptable mourning period for a relationship?
you know, didn't somebody come up with like a formula, like
Yep.
based on like months or something like that? So like,
Just
what was it? It was the number of months that you dated divided by what is it? It's like the the number of years you went out or something like that. So like if you no, that doesn't make sense. I forgot what the hell that formula was. but there was like a three it was like a period where it's like if you dated for a year, you're allowed to be sad for 3 months. If you dated for 2 years, you're allowed to be sad for like half a year. And it was like almost like it was in blocks of like threes almost or something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Well,
It,
you look it up. You have a computer in front of
yeah, I do have a computer. It's like
you.
and it's like
I mean, I don't know if that's something that it's so common that that there is a formula out there, but I've heard people say half the length of your relationship you're allowed to do. But I mean, if you're with someone for 10 years, I think 5 years is a pretty insane amount of time
yeah,
to be
well,
having.
that's what I'm saying. That's why I thought it was I thought it was in blocks of 3 months because it's like if you've gone out with somebody for like 5 years, then you know then it would be 3 months times five, so that's what 15 months. It's about a year and a couple months. Is like that's acceptable. I think
What's
that's
the penalty if you go beyond your the appropriate mourning period?
I think the penalty is the effect on your social life. Honestly, it's there are instances where people have to move on. You can't prevent that. The issue is like it is going to be hard, especially if you've been dating somebody for over like 2 years or something like that. That person has been uh, a part of your life for so long that I think it is very acceptable to take a long time to get over that person. But there comes a point in which uh, you've got to just sort of pick yourself up and go forward. But there is absolutely a mourning period for the relationship. I think. But what is acceptable? It will be. I think it's personal. I think it's up to completely the person that's been broken up with, or the dumper or the dumpee. The weird part is that the people who break up, the emotional baggage. I don't know if that's probably the word. Can be uh, reciprocal. Like even though they broke up with that person, they still miss them and are sad that they're not with them anymore, even though they were the one that broke up with them.
I generally
Yeah,
expect that would be a much shorter period than the other, though,
you would
because they've
think.
made
Yeah, yeah,
because basically by the time if you're in a long-term relationship, by the time that you've come to that moment that you're going to be done with the other person, you've already you've already gone on to that process, the process of moving on.
yeah.
Whereas the other person might be blindsided by it, and therefore take longer.
That is
So
true.
I think it does. Of course, all of the context matters, and especially if there were some super traumatic things like being cheated on, or you know, I don't know. There's all kinds of nasty stuff out there. But I think if you are, I think if you're actively working on it, you shorten that time significantly too,
Hmm.
instead of just dwelling on it and reliving it over and over again. Like you can hang on to your pain and suffering, and actually people can get addicted to it in a way where they it makes them feel something,
Hmm.
and it makes it feel like the love meant more or it was more significant or something. So they keep doing it. They keep like opening their wounds, and therefore it just drags out the whole process.
So as you told me to Google the issue here, I have found a whole bunch of different theories of how long is it supposed to how long you're supposed to get over a breakup. I'm going to show this here on the topic
Cool.
screen. So, whoops, that's not the topic I want to show. That's the topic. So this is on Hello Giggles, and Hello Giggles is like the subtitle is "It's going to be okay." It's like how long it takes to get over a breakup. So my favorite one here is the scientific theory. As I scroll down here, so a 2009 study found that it took most divorcees, and divorcees are long-term relationships, so they've probably had uh, a long courtship, dating time, and then got married, and now it's over. And this includes, like, with getting married, you're sharing money, housing, all sorts of other stuff. There's craziness. 17 months and 26 days is the average time for a person to get over a marriage, no matter how long you've been married, apparently.
Huh.
So that is a year and a half. So, that's a lot shorter than I thought it would be. So,
But I mean,
yeah,
if you're married 25 years and it takes you a year and a half, it's
that's
quite different than if you're married a year and a half and it takes you a year and a half.
yeah. Yeah. So it's like, but the failure of marriage is very jarring for people, especially like, because you, in some way, you yourself have failed by either choosing the wrong person or having that person completely, betray you in some way, which has caused you to um, end your relationship, which was meant to be, quote, forever. Um, I think because of the way that the divorce rate here is in this country, I think it's at 50%. It's like half of all marriages don't work, which is a scary thing to think about. Uh,
I think it's actually come down.
has it
I
come
think
down?
yeah, I think more recently it's come down. But there was a time when it was basically flip of a coin.
Yeah.
So that's scary. I mean, I remember growing up on my block, and I'm talking about either side of the street all the way down. So that would be what, 20 houses?
Yeah.
Uh, I think that there are maybe two or three that didn't go through divorce during those, you know, between born and high school.
So this is funny. As I was going through elementary school, junior high school, and high school, um, I think I was one of the only people who didn't have parents that were divorced that were friends of mine. So like all of my friends who were, quote, American, not the Indonesians, because all of those people actually ended up staying married for some reason, but all of my, quote, white friends, as my mom would say, uh, they all had divorced. I remember my friend Jared, divorced mom, ended up remarrying. I think it was a Marine captain. He was a really cool guy, very strict, but a very cool guy. My friend Jason, whose mom was a educational teacher here in the city that we live, but also divorced. His dad was a sportscaster in Chicago, so they lived really far apart, but never saw him ever. Um, my the funny part about it is my friend Carlos, who was also a foreigner at the time because he had moved in from Colombia. He was the only other person that I knew that had parents that were married, and we were both the foreigners, so we just thought it was really weird. It was funny. Like, just a little side note. This group of friends of mine, it was my elementary school friends, and in sixth grade, we were obsessed with being evil villains and taking over the world. So that is what I remember from the majority of my sixth grade year was hanging out with these guys. We'd go to the mall and try to come up with weird ways to uh, destroy the world and become the superior leaders of the world. I don't know what we were obsessed about.
While sipping on your orange Julius
That is
and
right.
playing an
I
arcade.
rem- I remember watching Hunt for Red October with all of these guys. It was like at the time, and we were like, we need a nuclear submarine. We were like, what the hell? We're like 12 years old. We're just watching all that stuff. So it was very funny. But
I'm
we
glad
go,
your dreams did not come true.
well, who knows? I could still rule the world, Tim. That's always a possibility. You need money to do it, apparently.
No
So
subs for you.
that we need subs right now. Help me rule the world. So, but yeah, this Hello Giggles article about how long it's supposed to take. Here's one. It all depends on the breakup theory. Relationship expert Dr. Darcy has a whole breakdown that revolves around the classic theory: divide your relationship time in half, but modifies it according to the circumstances. So she says if it was a mutual breakup, you can subtract it by 10% from the classic theory. If you were cheated on, it's 20%. More time to recover. Add 30% if it's the ye old classic theory, it was your first love, and tack on 10 to 50% of the time you spend together divided in half if you were totally and utterly blindsided by the breakup. You know, does that make
Yeah,
sense? Yeah, it's like I think she's trying to
sure.
scale it. I guess that's fine. So, you know, And then theirs is there's the How I Met Your Mother theory. Anybody that's watched the show, uh, like they all had different ratings. So Robin's was 10,000 drinks. However long it takes you to have 10,000 drinks, that's how long it is together. Marshall is 1 week for every month that you were together. That is one of the that I think is where the 3 month the
That's
three
just
month
a
calculator that I came
quarter.
from. Yeah. So 1 week for every month. So for if you were dating for 12 months, which is a year, that's 12 weeks or three
Right,
months.
it's a quarter.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And then Lily's is half the length of the relationship. So.
I think half might be too big past a certain point,
Hmm.
and I think that I mean 25%. I guess that could be fine. I think the drinks thing is stupid, and I think that there's too much alcoholism shown in TV shows. So I'm gonna throw that one right away.
That whole show was based in a bar, though, Tim. I mean, like,
So many are.
yeah. I mean, like Cheers, How I Met Your Mother. What other bar shows are there? Friends was a coffee shop, so it wasn't a bar.
What's the
Uh,
new one? Philly.
what is it? The that thing in Philadelphia. The
Yeah.
yep. That's based on Patty's Pub. That's right. That's also a bar. Uh, what else? What else is
Yeah.
based on a bar?
Anyways,
Yeah.
it's just it's something that I noticed when coming back from living overseas for so long. Uh, every single TV show, every single movie, anytime people are having a conversation that is not, there's no action or something like that, they're always pouring alcohol and drinking it while they're talking. And uh, like I'm not against alcohol or anything, but on some subliminal level, it's the same as like back in the 80s where everyone always light up a cigarette
Hmm.
and that like they were just pushing it in a way. So I don't think I think it ends up feeding into people using something, substances, cigarettes, drugs, alcohol as a way to deal with their feelings. Like it's a pretty common thing. Like when you break up,
Hmm.
you're supposed to go get drunk, or your friends will take you out and oh you're having feelings, let's go drink. It's like uh, it's a solution that can lead to bigger problems. I think.
Well, it's a solution that can lead to bigger problems, yes. But I understand the um, drowning your sorrows away in a beer or something like that. I mean, that's always been the stereotype, right? When you break up with somebody, is like, you pour a cold one and then you tell your sorrows to the bartender who's on the other side that's going to listen to what happened to your relationship.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's not a cold one. It's not pour a beer. It is like
multiple
drink
beers.
till your
Yeah,
head's on the table and you're carried out after the bar closes. Like
yeah.
it's a bit excessive. Um, but so like when we're talking about people taking time to recover from a breakup, uh, I think I think people end up developing habits as a way to recover. Some of them might be bad. Some of them might find, hey, it feels better to immediately jump into another relationship, or it feels better to like lose the bad feelings by sleeping with everything that moves, or uh, you know, drinking, or basically anything that's just like kind of excessive and keeps you from thinking about or feeling about the things that you kind of need to actively work on
Yeah,
to get to a
it
better place.
it's a distraction. It could be hell. It could be working out. Drinking is
Yeah,
one way of doing it. Like, uh, working out is one way of doing it. Just tiring your body to the point that you just don't think about what you're going through right now. Completely understandable. So, I just think
right.
I just think the alcohol industry makes such a killing associating the two. You know, most alcohol now is owned by like I think like four companies. It's like Diageo owns like 85% of like all of the spirits in the world. And then you've got your beer makers like InBev and SAB Miller, I think, who own, I think, 65% of the overall beer industry in the world or something like that, something crazy. So I was like, those guys have a lot of power to sort of push a narrative when it comes to stuff. And, it's so easy to associate it with a human emotion, such as like a breakup or something like that, that it's easy money to sort of push all that stuff. I don't know if I'm going a little too like, oh my God, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on because I think they're doing it to
No,
make money.
absolutely. No, it's it is all purposeful. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist by nature, but uh, everything that is put to us on Facebook and all, it's all purposeful. All the advertisements are directed to us. But and it's not just that. Like we're we are when watching movies and TV shows shown people behaving poorly because it's kind of exciting to watch someone trash themselves to like destroy themselves in their lives. For some reason we like to see that. It makes us feel better about our situation. So like you'll see uh you know I don't know, I was watching one earlier today, and a woman's husband cheated on her, and her response was, first crying and screaming and that, and then going down to a gun range and getting a gun and just blowing the hell out of a target and bottles and all this other stuff, and then like feeling amazing about it. And like, I get that. I get that, you want to take out your anger in a way that doesn't hurt anyone. I get that. But it's like, there's some reason that the audience is seeing that and getting kind of excited about it. There's something in us that makes us drawn to uh, explosive kind of emotion as a way of not feeling our pain.
Well, in that particular case, like, guns are very powerful. I've been to a gun range. I've shot guns before. Um, they do make you feel like a badass. They make you feel like you're in control. And sometimes, like when you are emotional, and you are going through something like a breakup or something like that, I can completely understand how that can be very much reinforcing in a situation where you are not in control. You are at the whims of somebody else's emotions or feelings if you've been broken up with, and you feel like you need to just stabilize yourself and be able to do it. So I get that. I understand the whole like burn things, like if you're angry,
Right?
destroy things, stuff like that.
Kill it with fire.
Kill it with fire. It's like, what was it? That's why like bonfires and stuff are freaking great if you are looking to just let loose and just watch something just burn down, especially if you've had a traumatic experience happen or something like that. So
You
understandable.
think that it's beneficial or that it works against you to keep trinkets, tokens, memories of previous relationships? Do you think it keeps you stuck in the healing process longer, or like it, it keeps you connected to that person so you can't move on as easily?
There are many schools of thought about that. It's a very interesting question because I think people do keep mementos for sure of previous relationships. I think everybody does in some way, photos, maybe a little gift here and there or something like that. But I think displaying them is what causes the extended period of, oh, I remember that. I think you can keep them as a memento, because I think you can look fondly back into it once you've been able to sort of go on with your life. I don't think the harm is in keeping it. I think the harm is in displaying it, and making it a constant reminder of what is going on. Does
So
that
the
make sense?
shoebox under the bed thing,
Yeah.
that's okay, but putting it up on the nightstand is not.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. So then here's the next step of that question. So what about after you get into your next relationship? Do you have to throw it out and destroy it, or are you still allowed to have the memory of what you had before in your previous relationship?
That's a great question. A lot of the times, too, for you to throw it out is not your choice. So this is the so the thing about it is like I have always been the one that's been okay with that, but I can completely understand why other people think that is a terrible thing to do, and even to the point where it's disrespectful to the person that you're dating. Not necessarily the uh, I don't think it's necessarily disrespectful because it is your memories and your emotions that are in that quote shoebox underneath the bed. Um, I think it could also, I don't know. It's like a lot of people want to be the number one, and people misinterpret what that is as them being not wholeheartedly engaged in their relationship. I don't think that's what that means. I think if you have a special moment with somebody and it's no longer you're no longer in a relationship, but you thought that that event was very special and you liked it a lot. I think you can keep it. I mean, it
Does
doesn't.
it matter what it is though? Like there's a pretty huge difference between keeping, a photo of you and that person uh at a party together playing cards around a table, or videos of you guys having sex or
I'm not.
something like that.
I knew you were gonna. Why did I immediately think you were gonna go straight to the
I
sex
gotta
tape?
go to extremes.
It's like no, okay. Yeah, you're just a perv if you're keeping sex tapes, but there are people who do that. Even but they don't even necessarily need to be in a relationship to do that. There are people who just
Okay,
film themselves and do that.
maybe that's too extreme.
Yeah.
That's a pretty obvious one.
Uh huh.
Let's do something else. How about like a picture of you kissing that person?
Hmm. That's a good point. There are. That would be a weird one to find right underneath the bed
Right.
without any explanations. Yeah, that would be pretty terrible to sort of try to talk yourself out of.
Dude, I've heard of some weird situations, man, like people keeping locks of hair
Okay, that shit's
and
creepy as fuck.
like
So sorry,
like
that's
y-
creepy.
capsules with the person's smell in it, and like just weird stuff.
Well, remember Angelina Jolie kept vials of blood, right? Like that. That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're talking about celebrities, they're all freaks anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not concerned with them.
So of the past relationships that I have, I think I've kept a couple things, and this is just my personal examples. I recently found the shoebox of memories that I had from my college relationship. That had a whole bunch of stuff like photos and all sorts of things in there that I was like, oh man, I remember this. That was pretty cool. And for one of the girls I dated, I still have all the movie stubs for some reason. I mean, it's like of the things of the movies we watched because we watched a lot of movies. Um, but those are the things that I'm keeping. I think it's hard. I think if somebody finds your quote shoebox and it was from a relationship like 20 years ago, I don't think they have a right to be mad. I think you have a right to explain what it is. But if it was like 20 years ago, nobody's gonna. I don't think nobody's gonna give a crap because it was like a
You never
old
know,
con.
man. People are jealous, and also it depends on your like the context of your current relationship. So
Well,
like
yeah,
if you're married, you're probably not supposed to hang on to anything from before. Like
I
that's
guess, yeah.
you've made a lifelong decision to be with
Hmm.
that person. But what about someone who you're, let's say you were dating someone and they died, or you're married for a short period of time and they died. Like then you kind of you'd be kind of a crappy person to say, I want you to throw out your box of
Of
memories of
memories,
that
yeah.
person.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you were a widower, for example, it's like, and it was the memories of your wife that or husband that you were married to, and we were married for a short time, but maybe died in a car accident or some sort of tragic incident or something like that. And somebody gets jealous. It's like, why do you still have that? You should throw that out. You're married to me now. That is freaking insensitive, I think. And it's like, in a way, the only reason that that person is still married with you is married to you is because that person passed away. That is like if that person was still alive, they probably wouldn't even be with you. So it's like I think they have a right to keep those memories. Absolutely. And it's like, you'd be respectful to him. At least I think. So
Yeah, I think most people are not dealing with that situation. Most of the time, it's like a photo album, or maybe maybe they bought you
this is
a
a great.
gift, and you're
This is one we should post to AITA. Would I be the asshole if I threw away my wife's photos of her dead husband?
but that's not a hard one. Like that's obviously the asshole. Like, what would be really, really bad is if you cut out his face and put your face in there and Photoshop yourself in
Oh, that's just
as
rude.
the guy. you you basically deserve to go to hell for that one.
Yeah, yeah,
But
you do. But I've been on that site, and I know how your wife loves that Reddit site too. Uh, they've been trying to experiment with uh, preventing people from glomming on to a particular opinion, because what I've found is that if you get in early on one of those questions, and this is weird internet psychology, I think the they're influenced a lot by the person who posts first and gets like a couple initial upvotes and starts to put their opinion to the top. And people have a tendency to just follow what the top comment is and sort of glom onto that, which is very very weird. And even the moderators have found that as they are going through threads of I did this, am I the asshole, or like I stole my wife's diamond, but I was only trying to get it like fixed or something like that, and she got really mad at me. And no, you're not an asshole, blah blah blah. But there are some like 50-50 things that that you can definitely understand why he would be or why he wouldn't be. But it's the first comment that came in while it was new that makes it go in 100% one direction or another. It was very weird. So they've now actually randomized comments in the first like 2 hours to rotate what's up top to see whether or not if people are actually basing any of their comments on what other people are posting. So it's very
yeah,
weird.
it makes. I mean, there's
Yeah.
that psychology supports that the primacy and recency theories
Hmm.
that whatever you're exposed to in recent time, it will influence your feelings and emotions, your thoughts and stuff. So it makes sense. Especially like there's a reason why certain comments are pushed up to the top. I think that so many, some people that are particularly clever or funny or made a really good point, they're going to fly up to the top. And then if it's that great, then of course you're going to jump on that. But um, I think for am I the asshole? I, I don't know. I think that some of them are so obvious that I don't even bother really finishing reading through it. As soon as I get like the basic
Hmm.
gist of it, I've made up my mind, and then so what? I like
Yes.
the ones where it's more where you're kind of drawn one way, and then suddenly you're like, whoa, wait, maybe I'll go in the other direction here. There are layers to this thing.
Oh, I get upset on the 50-50 ones where people cop out and claim that both people are wrong. It's like no. You gotta pick a side, dude. Like the ESH, which is everybody sucks here, is a complete cop out when it comes to uh, uh, deciding on whether or not a person is an asshole or not. I mean, the ones the ones that I think are the most hilarious ones that you can tell that the entire comment has been brigaded by someone not in your age group have always been stuff associated to parents and their children. And when you read them and you completely understand what the parent is completely thinking. So I think one recently was uh, it was a dad. No, this yeah, it was a dad that messes with his daughter when she's about to go on dates. So like he like gets her to eat. He prepares a meal right before a date and he loads it up with like garlic. Or the date comes at home and he's sitting in the living room with a hockey mask and looking like Jason from Friday the 13th to just scare the shit out of the boyfriend. And you see like the comments of the people are just like, "Oh, your dad is a complete jackass. He's such an a-hole. I can't believe he's doing that." And then I post something. It's like, "Oh, it's like, I guess none of you have ever had kids before because that's what dads do." And I get like negative like 60 downvotes. It's like, you're a complete jackass believing that's not right to do. It's like, I think it's hilarious. And it's like, oh my God, that's funny. It's like, wait until your kids start going out. You're going to be completely on the other side of this one. So it's like, okay. So,
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, you don't really get a sense of the statistics for Reddit, and what the average age of a poster is, and their background, the demographics, and all that. But it would be curious to see if there were demographics for the responses for these various questions, not just am I the asshole, but just across the board, because it might be interesting to see if you could draw patterns between certain groups of people and how they respond, whether or not they like certain things. I'm sure there's data pulled from it. Hell, I'm sure they're using it to advertise, and they're selling that information to somebody.
mhm.
But you meet some interesting personalities in the comment section. Like, the comment section on YouTube and other places like that is just the worst. Society's worst.
Yes,
And they
yes.
come out and they share it and they don't care, but or they troll. But I've gotten into some back and forths on Reddit. Uh, there was one that stands out. Um, I made a I made a comment about an article that was posted that was pretty uh, pretty anti-man. It
Hmm.
actually relates to what we were talking about earlier, like about how I think the whole concept was that women are expected to carry men who are unable to express their emotions, or something like that. And my comment was basically like, while this is true, it has been true in traditional senses, I think men are more open now, that they are that this can be a two-way street, that doesn't have to be just about men, and that this article in particular, the way it's written, is actually kind of anti-man.
Hmm.
Um, and the person who responded to me did not like that I disagreed with the article, and immediately started attacking me. And so it would turn into like this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, where I kept talking about the article specifically, and this person kept trying to come after me, or who they imagined I would be, and try to make it personal. And I'm just like,
No,
okay,
I'm referencing what you wrote.
yeah,
Yeah. That actually brings me to a point of like, on the internet, if you are unable to defend your point, you immediately lose. If you immediately go to the personal attacks when the other person is still commenting on what you are writing, you immediately, I think, have to declare that that person has lost the argument. And I think it also happens in real life too. But on the internet, people are usually very good at trying to defend whatever it is that they've tried to post. They'll try to, like, here's the link that I got this information from. Well, here's the link that counters your link with regards to what you've posted in. It's like, well, no, that's complete crap because this and then like that. And I think you actually get to a point somewhat better debate, uh, because I think in person, uh, as soon as they start going to the low blows and the personal attacks, it's like it's like it becomes an immediate shit show, and it's like,
right.
oh,
But I think people that make it personal, I don't know if they ever recognize that they lose, though. I think that they
oh no.
are just feeling,
Well,
entitled to their feelings and
nobody
laying into
loses
some.
an argument on
We
the
all
internet.
lose.
Nobody loses an argument in their own mind. It's like, oh, I think I've won that argument. The Reddit's the weirdest place because you get upvotes or downvotes depending on what you post, and other people are reading, what you're posting, unless you're doing it through DMs or something like that. But it's like, so there is like theoretically a scoreboard that's associated to how what you're posting and doing. So like people will get, the thing about it is sometimes depending on the board that you're on, if you have an opinion that goes against the majority of the people on the board that you're posting, you're going to lose in points no matter what, no matter how valid your point is, because it is counter to what the hive mind thinks. So it's like, which is why I always find AITA very interesting, because they theoretically have the same hive mind. So when you post something completely opposite of what is traditionally believed in that subreddit, then you know you're immediately going to get brigaded and get downvoted on stuff, which is to me
Right, but the
fine.
hive mind is not always right, and oft actually, I would say there is no necessary value to the hive mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you can get a lot of people to agree about something that is not necessarily good, and we see a lot of that in these, dating forums on Reddit that we go through to pull our content, and, I mean, honestly, for every 10 posts about a relationship, 9 of them, there are gonna be people just one after the other saying, "Break up, break up, break up, break up," and,
Oh yeah.
like, just because that's a very popular and very easy way to solve the problem, with the quotations over solve,
Mhm.
um, it doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do, and or that it's, like, really good advice to take.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think it's funny when you see, like, in a what was it, is in a there was one that was like a three-parter yesterday that I was reading, because I was following the guy, because and bear with me, I'm trying to remember the story. Like, he has a girlfriend that went on vacation. Apparently, they were a very good couple, and this is what he was posting, and it ended up on all, because people just were so interested in what was going on in this guy's relationship. But he would always text her in the morning, or text her or FaceTime her. It was FaceTiming her in the morning to say hi. It's like, how you doing? Good morning. It's like, I love you. Blah blah blah. Oh, schmoopy, like things like that. Um, so I think it was like 3 days into her vacation, the dude FaceTimes her, and she turned it down. So he FaceTimes her again, turns it on again, and tries a third time, does it again. So he ends up texting her. He's like, "Hey, what's going on? Good morning. I know you're awake because you keep canceling the FaceTimes. What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just I don't want to FaceTime right now. I look like a mess." It's like, when has that ever stopped you from FaceTiming me? I don't care how you look. And it's like they get in a little text argument, and then he FaceTimes her again, and she accepts this time. But what ends up happening is that she sees, he sees, the boyfriend sees that she's in somebody else's apartment, and she's eating breakfast in bed with her girlfriend, and there's a guy in there too that apparently she's been trying to
In
hide from
bed?
in bed. So it was his girlfriend, her friend, and a guy in the bed, and they're eating breakfast, and the guy's like, who the fuck is that? And it's like, no, it was a friend. I slept on the couch, nothing happened. And he's like, I was like, what the fuck? And then he hangs up on her, and then literally the next and then that's where the part one ends. So immediately the whole post is brigaded with, oh dude, you got to dump her. It's like, it's like, that's bullshit. It's like, it's like nothing. So update two comes, and he's saying that they get on an argument on the phone, because he calls her after that, and she says that she slept on the couch, but they were just waking up also, and they decided to just go into his bedroom, and they wanted to have breakfast, but her friend was there too, so it's not like she was cheating. And then now he becomes a little self-conscious. It's like, well, I don't really know. It's like, well, she's trying to explain that all of this happened, and like, this is the like, nothing really happened at all the comment section. She's lying to you. It's like, it's all lies. It's like, it's like, oh, this is all bullshit. You need to dump her. It's like, all of it is wrong. Third update comes in. He does break up with her. She ends up getting on a plane to fly back to try to repair their relationship, all the while being adamant that nothing happened with this guy, that she ended up sleeping at this guy's house in Miami. and that's where it ended. But my question is to you is that would you react any differently than this guy if you had a routine with what you do with your girlfriend, then all of a sudden you see her eating breakfast with her girlfriend and another guy in a bed in a city far away? It's like, what?
There are so many. I mean, honestly, there are so many elements. You have to know who you're with and what kind of person they are. If you had any experiences in the past that might have indicated that this is a possibility, that this weird um, three-way hookup thing would be possible. So, like, if I start going through the inventory here and thinking about ex-girlfriends, my first ex-girlfriend, my
Hmm.
first girlfriend, 0% chance. If that, if she had FaceTimed me and had been in bed with a guy and a girl eating breakfast, I would have been like, I guess they're having breakfast in bed because they're just hanging out. And maybe that's me being dumb, but you, you just it just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Um, Second one, I'm pretty sure it would have happened. So, like I think there is context that you have to take into account. And like presently, if it were for my wife, I'd be like, okay, she's been kidnapped. This she would not want anything to do with that situation.
What about the one before your wife? Because I know what the first one probably
Oh,
would have been one,
no.
and the second one
No,
with the,
she
like, what about?
so
Yeah.
my ex latest and last, she just it just wouldn't. She was very, very, very faithful, and honestly, we had a ability to communicate, which is actually really, really strong. So I wouldn't have doubted that.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. This just comes down to how trusting of a person you are, how well you know the person you're with, and uh, also, whether you can, whether you can, whether you deal with jealousy, and so for me, I just don't. It's just not on my menu.
Well,
I'm like, I trust the person I'm with
yeah.
until they prove otherwise, and then I'm not with them. So
Well, the thing that I can't get over is the girlfriend on the other side. Why not just go fucking outside? Stay in the bathroom. Do something else. What the hell motivated you to actually answer the FaceTime while in bed eating with your girlfriend and this other guy? Couldn't you have just been in the dude's kitchen or something? Or like in the bathroom, just like, hey, I'm in the bathroom. I ate something really, really bad last night and I'm feeling
But
like
then you're
crap.
lying. Then you're
Yeah.
lying, and
Yeah.
that's a problem in itself. I think that if you have I think that they're FaceTiming every morning as a routine thing. Breaking that means that you're kind of in a way trying to hide something. When you alter your behavior and try to hide something to avoid it looking a certain way, that's already a stumble. You're already kind of going down a bad path because then you're gonna have to lie to keep up with the lie.
So,
So
but is brutal honesty in that particular case? If she had never started turning down the FaceTimes, if she would have just answered the first one,
yeah, if she answers straight away with the dude and the girl in bed with him in the background, like straight up, "Hey, good morning, how you doing?" I think the dude he might have been like, what's happening here?" But he wouldn't. I don't think he would have directly gone to, "You're having a cheating threesome."
yeah, 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 yeah. It's learning how to do that. So it's very interesting, because like I think if they would have done that, if she would have done that, and immediately the dude in the background would be like, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" And then the friend is like, "Hey, what's going on?" Then you would have been like, what the hell is that? And who's that guy?" And then you could have told the story of you were partying out last night, you met this dude. We didn't have any. We were really far away from the hotel. He has a really nice house. We slept on the couch. Now we're having breakfast. But
I
it's like,
mean, yeah,
yeah,
it depends on these people what they're
yeah,
comfortable with.
I
If you have issue with your significant other being within 5 feet of a person of the opposite sex, that is nothing's going to matter in that situation. It's
Well,
just
yeah,
not going to make
absolutely. Well,
sense.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, so like what I'm saying is like it really depends on the relationship you have and the details of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. But the takeaway for me on this one is like the point at which you start lying to protect yourself from something, like
Mm-hmm.
just from their negative impression, there's already something going on. There's already something wrong happening. It's just much better to be straight up from the beginning.
All right. So, you know, we've had no problems talking in Freeform Thursday. It is now a 1 hour and 15 minutes into the stream now, Tim. Uh, we have done excellently talking about just random crap.
Yeah. We went to some interesting places for sure.
No, it's like this is
Uh,
fun. I think there are a lot of topics. I think that the way that the show is structured, um, and now we're just getting a little meta because we're talking about like how we structure our show and stuff. But I think because we pick topics and there are posts and stuff that we talk about, there isn't a lot of being able to go too far off topic before we have to sort of bring it back. This particular format, where we're just talking about random stuff and where we can go from all of it, I think is nice. It's very freeing. So it's like it's very cool. It's very different um, from what we do. I think I like the variety of how we do stuff. Now, do we need to be doing this 3 times a week? I don't know.
yeah, no, I mean, we could have because like what on Wednesday nights we do direct Reddit response stuff,
Reddit,
right? We
yeah,
pick
we do Reddit
we pick
response stuff and
three
questions.
to four
Uh-huh.
different topics and
Mhm.
deal with them specifically, giving advice. Then on Sunday we do like a deep dive into one particular subject and pull other sources and just really really get into it for the whole time.
Correct.
This is kind of just like wandering in the forest and seeing where we end up. So it's fun in its own way. At sometimes it might sort of, I don't know, we might get lost, but that's fine. No
I like
problems
it.
here.
I like it. So I
So
think.
we could do
Mhm.
like a half. Like on Sundays we could do this half the time, or we could do
Mhm.
this as a bonus topic on Wednesday, or just a little bit of it.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah. I think it'll be fun. It'll be
I
interesting.
do
Let's see
think.
what our audience will think of Freeform Thursday. So it might be more interesting because
Yeah,
one of our friends has said that we should incorporate a little bit more levity into our podcast and not be so serious.
yeah.
So, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we're not dealing with people's real problems, it's easier just to lighten it up. And this is a lot of sharing our personal stories too. So
Yeah.
there's generally some stuff to laugh about in that as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I think that this freeform thing would go even better if we had people jumping in on chat
Hmm.
because then it can go. It doesn't have to be just kind of where we go in our heads, but they can influence it as well.
Yeah. I mean, who was that? Who's Pretty Brood Door? So I saw.
That's bet.
Oh, is that really bad? Oh, okay. I didn't know who that was. So okay. So yeah, I think it'd be cool because honestly, like interactions with Twitch is and what they bring up could be very very informational and or provide us fodder for us to go into directions that we wouldn't have thought of. So absolutely right. So you know.
Well, you want to wrap it up here, and
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. So that is going to be it for us. So thanks very much for listening to the initial version of Freeform Thursday. So Tim, any final thoughts or anything about Freeform Thursday? I think we've talked about pretty much everything here, and even our thoughts of what we've done. So I didn't know if you had anything else to add.
yeah. No, maybe we did talk briefly about bringing on like a third person in here
Mm-hmm.
to, uh, especially when something's specific to them or if they have a specific background that's useful for some of our advice stuff. But I think Freeform Thursday would be a perfect venue for a third voice in here just um, to help with the wandering.
Oh,
So perhaps we could do
yeah,
that.
I think we can absolutely do that. There are plenty of our female friends who would be very interested already in trying to get on here and providing the
Oh, really?
female voice. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, I can. All right. So like three people just came to mind. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure.
So, but that's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you for watching us here on YouTube and on Twitch. As always, if you want to drop any questions or comments, please contact us via email at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can also tweet us on Twitter at twitchline. Go ahead and drop us a follow there so you know when the show goes live. Uh, Also, down if you want to see some of our older shows, our focus Sunday focus topics. They're all available on YouTube. You just click on the link below. You'll go to our channel there on YouTube, and you can search our content and all the videos that we've posted there. So all of our live streams actually end up being recorded and being saved there on YouTube. And if you need us on the go, you can actually listen to us on SoundCloud at Twitchline Relationship Advice. We upload shows 2 to 3 days after they are done. We try to make sure we edit out all the empty bits and you're listening to just fresh stuff here on Twitchline. But for Acorn, I am Hodo. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll try to get back on regular schedule, which means Sunday focus time this week. It'll be later in the evening, but we will have a topic where we will talk about and focus on and see if we can educate you on something associated to the relationship realm. But for Acorn, I am Hodo. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Good night, everyone.